Every August, I watch the same thing happen in gardens across zones 3 through 9. The garden peaks in July, then mid-August arrives and everything collapses. Beds look tired, colors are gone, and gardeners are left waiting 6 weeks for parking lot mums. Same cycle every year. After reviewing hundreds of university extension trial records, I can tell you that experience is entirely preventable. It is not your climate. It is not your soil. It is a planning calendar built around what photographs well in a nursery flat in April. Late summer and fall performers do not move product in spring, so they get buried or dropped entirely. 12 perennials planted right now in this late summer window will carry your garden from September through the first hard frost. Everyone documented by extension research. Everyone permanent. Most gardeners have never heard of this planting window. Plant number 1, Hylotelephium Herbstfreude, the perennial that turns 3 distinct colors before frost and never asks a thing from you. The mistake is planting it in rich amended soil. You put it in your best prepared border. The stems bow sideways by late August. You stake them, rain hits, the stakes pull free, and year 3, you buy mums instead. The nursery sold you a plant that requires mistreatment to stand upright and never said so once. The nursery tag will never tell you this. Hylotelephium Herbstfreude performs best in lean, average to poor soil with 0 added fertility. The UC Master Gardener program of Sonoma County documents this specifically. Rich or moist conditions produce exactly the flopping stems that drive gardeners away permanently. Full sun, gravel mulch, no fertilizer, ever. Blooms open pale pink in late August, deepen through rose to copper red by October, then dry to russet seed heads feeding goldfinches through December across zones 3 through 9. In zones 3 through 5, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas. It survives to -20 Fahrenheit once established. Unlabeled seed-grown stone crop performs inconsistently. Look for Hylotelephium Herbstfreude by exact name. Nurseries undersell this because lean spots only need one purchase. Ending the replacement relationship permanently. Bottom line. Give this your worst, driest soil in full sun, and it delivers 5 months of changing color every year. Plant 2 covers, part shade, and consistent moisture. Together, they handle situations that neither covers alone. Plant number 2, Symphyotricum novae Angliae Purple Dome, the compact native aster that covers itself in vivid purple for 4 weeks in early fall when most of the border has already finished. The mistake is buying unlabeled New England asters and watching them grow 5 feet tall, collapse in September, and develop powdery mildew so severe the foliage turns gray before the blooms open. That happens once and the entire species gets written off. The problem was never the species. It was the absent cultivar name. Purple Dome was selected by Dr. Richard Leidy of Mount Cuba Center in Delaware, specifically for its compact, self-supporting 2-foot form. Mount Cuba Center trial data confirms it produces dense clusters of vivid purple semi-double flowers in early fall, covering the plant so completely you cannot see the foliage beneath. Hardy zones 3 through 8. From Minnesota to the Carolinas, Penn State Extension documents the straight species receives 3 times more pollinator visits than Purple Dome. So for maximizing wild pollinator support, the straight species in a meadow setting is the better choice. For a tidy self-supporting border plant that does not flop, Purple Dome is the documented standard. Commercial nurseries sell unlabeled aster flats because they are cheaper to produce and move at the same price point. The cultivar name that prevents the flopping is never on the tag. Bottom line, Purple Dome, specifically, not generic aster, not an unlabeled flat, delivers 2 feet of solid purple in early fall with 0 staking required. Plant 3 brings 7 continuous weeks of fire colors, the longest documented bloom window in the late summer garden. Plant number 3, Helenium autumnal Sahin's early flowerer, the sneezeweed that blooms for 7 documented weeks and produces amber, orange, and red fire colors unlike anything else in the fall border. The mistake is dismissing this plant based on the common name alone. Sneezeweed has nothing to do with sneezing. The name comes from historical use of dried leaves to make snuff. Gardeners who skip it are leaving one of the longest blooming fall perennials in zones 4 through 8 off their list for no horticultural reason. Mount Cuba Center trial data documents a 7-week bloom period for Sahin's early flowerer, one of the longest of any helenium evaluated. The flowers open deep red with a brown and yellow central cone, then develop orange and yellow streaks as they mature, so each flower changes color across its own lifespan. 3 feet on sturdy stems, rarely requiring staking. Hardy zones 4 through 8, from Vermont to Virginia in the east. Zones 5 through 7 across the Midwest. Moist soil is required for best performance, which is why it pairs naturally with lean soil sedum rather than competing for the same conditions. It holds the RHS Award of Garden Merit and was discovered in a Dutch trial garden because it bloomed significantly longer than every seedling surrounding it. The nursery tag will never tell you the cultivar distinction that determines bloom period and color range. Named helenium cultivars are rarely stocked because the species name alone sells at point of sale. Bottom line, Sahin's early flowerer in moist soil and full sun produces 7 continuous documented weeks of fire-colored blooms. Before we continue, there is something I want to say directly to every gardener watching this. To anyone watching this who has spent years trusting plant tags and paying the price, watching gardens that never delivered what the label promised, wondering what you were doing wrong, that experience is real. It is not because you made bad decisions. The commercial model sells what looks good in April. What your garden needs in September has never been part of that conversation. That is exactly what Feral Garden exists to close. And if this documented knowledge is reaching you for the first time, then subscribe right now, because what is coming is the information that should have been on every tag you ever bought. Plant number 4, Anemone X hybrida, Honorine Jobert, the 1858 French heirloom windflower that fills shade gardens with white blooms on 5-foot stems for 6 to 8 weeks from August through October. The mistake is planting fall anemones in full sun with dry soil. Generic Japanese anemone flats go into the wrong location, fail to establish, bloom minimally, and disappear by year 3. Gardeners conclude fall anemones do not work in their climate, the location was wrong, and the cultivar information was absent. NC State Extension documents Honorine Jobert in zones 4 through 8 with flowers 2 to 3 inches across and a 4 to 8 week bloom period from August through September. Fine Gardening documents this 1858 cultivar, named after a nurseryman's daughter in Verdun, France, as an RHS Award of Garden Merit holder. Chicago Botanic Garden trial data logged its bloom at 45.8 days of continuous white flowers on wiry stems in partial shade. There is almost nothing else in documented fall horticulture that delivers white flowers in shade in October. Moist, organically rich soil, part shade, zones 4 through 8. Plant now and it will be established and fully blooming next fall. The commercial reason for its absence. Fall anemones establish slowly and require a shaded location that spring clients have not asked about. The conversation is too complex for a tag, so the plant ships without guidance and fails. Bottom line, Honorine Jobert. In part shade, fills the shade garden with white flowers from August through October. A gap almost nothing else covers. Plant 5 moves to full sun, 6 feet. Gold flowers from midsummer through frost. Plant number 5, Rudbeckia laciniata, Herbstsonny. The 6-foot native coneflower that blooms from midsummer through fall frost with documented 4 to 6 week performance in zones 3 through 9. The mistake is planting Rudbeckia fulgida var. Sullivanti gold sturm when you want back a border scale and wondering why it stays at 2 to 3 feet. Gold sturm is outstanding at that height, but it is not Herbstson, and the two are routinely shelved side by side with no explanation of the 3-foot difference. Growing Wild Nursery in North Carolina documents Herbstson at 6 feet on self-supporting stems with flowers 4 to 5 inches across, broad drooping gold petals surrounding a pale green conical center. Bloom begins in July and continues 4 to 6 weeks. The RHS awarded this cultivar the Award of Garden Merit in 2002. Hardy zones 3 through 9, from the Canadian border to Georgia, from the Great Plains to the Pacific Coast. It tolerates clay soil and adapts to periodic drought once established. For containers or small spaces, Little Gold Star at 14 inches delivers comparable color in confined situations. Herbstsonne means autumn sun in German. The name tells you exactly when and why it was selected. The commercial suppression is labeling omission. The 3-foot height difference between these two cultivars is never communicated at the point of sale. Bottom line, Herbstsonne delivers 6 feet of back of border gold and 4 to 6. Documented weeks from midsummer through fall frost. Plant 6 has been avoided by American gardeners for 50 years based on a misidentification, and it is the most important late-season nectar plant in the Eastern Flyway. Plant number 6, Solidago rugosa, Fireworks. The native goldenrod rated number 1 in the Chicago Botanic Gardens 5-year evaluation and the most critical late-season pollinator plant most American gardeners have been avoiding based entirely on a botanical mix-up. The mistake is not planting goldenrod because of hay fever. Missouri Botanical Garden states this directly. Goldenrod does not cause hay fever. Its pollen is sticky and bee-moved, not windborne. The actual culprit is ragweed, Ambrosia artemisiafolia, which blooms simultaneously and releases windborne pollen in massive quantities. Goldenrod is blooming nearby, invisible. Ragweed is invisible and gets away clean. Goldenrod has been taking the blame for 50 years. Fireworks was selected in 1970 by Ken Moore of the North Carolina Botanical Garden. New Moon Nursery documents it as the top performer in the Chicago Botanic Gardens 5-year goldenrod evaluation. 3 feet on sturdy stems, arching sprays of brilliant yellow flowers beginning mid-August through October across zones 4 through 9, documented as a primary monarch fueling station on the Eastern Fall Flyway. NC State Extension confirms it is non-aggressive, spreading slowly by rhizomes. The commercial reason for its suppression, unlabeled goldenrod species spread aggressively and generated complaints, so Fireworks was dropped with the rest without the correction being made at retail. Bottom line, Fireworks rated number 1 in published trial data, fuels monarch migration, and has been excluded from American gardens for 50 years based on a misidentification the nursery industry never corrected. Plant 7 fills the one fall gap that nothing else addresses. Deep shade after everything else has finished. Plant number 7, Tricertus hirta Miyazaki. The toad lily that produces orchid-like flowers in deep shade from September through October, when nothing else in that part of your garden is alive. The mistake is dismissing this plant based on the common name. Toad lily sounds like a drainage ditch species. In reality, it produces flowers that look like miniature orchids, white and lavender with intricate purple speckling, in the deepest shade of your garden after everything else is finished for the year. University of Wisconsin Extension documents Triceratops hirta in zones 4 through 9, part to full shade, moist soil, rich in organic matter. Chicago Botanic Gardens Toad Lily evaluation identified Triceratops formosana as the top performer, with the related T. hirta Miyazaki documented as one of the most reliable cultivars, producing lavender flowers with dense purple speckling at every leaf axil on arching stems from September through October. NC State Extension confirms a 4 to 8 week bloom period and lists it as suitable for cutting gardens and shaded woodland borders. In zones 4 through 5, New England, the upper Midwest, it survives to negative 20 Fahrenheit once established in moist, organically rich soil. The commercial reason for its absence, toad lily sits on the bench as a plain leafy plant all spring with nothing blooming to show. It cannot sell itself in April, so it was dropped. Bottom line, Miyazaki toad lily delivers documented late season bloom in deep shade from September through October, a fall garden gap that no other commonly available perennial fills. Plant 8 fills moist part shade conditions from August through hard freeze, the in between situation that neither sedum nor toad lily covers. Plant number 8, Chelone Lyone Hot Lips, the native turtlehead that produces intense rose pink flowers in moist part shade from August through the first hard freeze, in the spots most gardeners have completely given up on. The mistake is planting this in dry soil. Chelone Lyone is native to stream-adjacent woodland soils in the southern Appalachians. In dry conditions, it survives but barely performs. Penn State Extension documents hot lips specifically. Bloom beginning in early August, continuing until a hard freeze, in rich moist soils in zones 3 through 8. NC State Extension confirms the species across zones 3 through 8 in moist to wet soils in part shade. The flowers are shaped exactly like turtle heads emerging from a shell, hooded upper lip and bearded lower lip on tightly clustered terminal spikes. The two-lip tubular structure forces pollinators to push through for nectar access. Only strong pollinators like bumblebees and hummingbirds can reach inside. This makes hot lips one of the most documented late-season bumblebee-attracting perennials in native plant literature, specifically valuable as colonies build toward their final generation before winter. Clemson Extension confirms the bloom period at 3 to 6 weeks. The commercial reason for its limited availability: the moist shade niche moves only in native plant categories, representing a fraction of spring sales volume. Bottom line, hot lips in moist part shade delivers August through hard freeze bloom in conditions where almost no other documented fall perennial performs reliably. Plant 9 brings the longest continuous bloom season on this entire list. June through October, frost with zero deadheading. Plant number 9, Persicaria amplexicaulis, firetail, the mountain fleece that produces scarlet bottlebrush spikes continuously from June through October with documented performance in zones 5 through 9 and zero required maintenance. The mistake is avoiding this plant because the genus name Persicaria triggers caution from experience with Japanese knotweed. That instinct is understandable. Anyone who has seen knotweed roots through a garage foundation gets it. But Missouri Botanical Garden documents Persicaria amplexicaulis, firetail, as clump forming and non-invasive in garden conditions. The genus name is the only thing these two plants share. Missouri Botanical Garden confirms tiny rose red flowers blooming June through September, occasionally to first frost, on narrow pencil-thin spikes above dense clumps of dark green foliage at 3 to 4 feet. Gardenia.net documents the bloom season as midsummer to fall with an RHS Award of Garden Merit, confirming the performance record. In zones 5 through 9, From coastal New England through the Pacific Northwest, it grows in full sun to part shade and average to moist soils and requires no deadheading. The commercial suppression is name-driven. Persicaria scares enough gardeners at point of sale that the category never builds retail volume, and the cultivar name rarely appears on tags even when the plant is in stock. Bottom line, Firetail Mountain Fleece delivers continuous documented bloom from June through October frost, requires zero deadheading, and increases in performance every successive year. Plant 10 vanished from commercial nurseries decades ago despite documented zones 4 through 9 performance, and blooms in a color so intense it stops people on the sidewalk. Plant number 10, Vernonia fasciculata, the ironweed native to eastern prairies that produces the most intensely pure purple flowers of any fall perennial, and has nearly disappeared from commercial availability despite documented performance in zones 4 through 9. The mistake is never having encountered this plant because the nursery industry stopped offering it decades ago. Vernonia fasciculata is named for its exceptionally tough stem. Native to open prairies, meadows, and stream banks from Ohio west to Kansas. Its bloom color, flat and electric, pure purple with no pink or blue diluting it, is a color almost nothing else in the fall garden produces at this scale. Prairie Nursery documents Vernonia fasciculata as having intense purple bloom color that stands out dramatically in the late summer landscape, attracting significant pollinator populations, including migrating monarchs, using it as a fall flyway fuel stop. Gardenia.net documents the closely related Vernonia gigantea at 5 to 8 feet with dense clusters of 30 to 50 tiny flowers per head in late summer and early fall. The common ironweed, Vernonia fasciculata, reaches 4 to 6 feet in average to moist soils in full sun across zones 4 through 9. Commercial reason for its disappearance. Ironweed is tall and structurally unremarkable before bloom. A large green stick on the bench through the entire spring selling season. It photographs poorly in April. Bottom line, Vernonia fasciculata is the most intensely colored fall perennial you have almost certainly never been offered. Native, permanent, and structurally dramatic from August through October. Plant 11 provides the structural grass backdrop that makes every surrounding fall bloomer look dramatically better. Plant number 11, Calamagrostis brachytricha, the Korean feather reed grass that produces fluffy purple-red plumes in late summer, is the only large ornamental grass documented as shade-tolerant and blooms in the opposite season from the grass most gardeners plant instead. The mistake is planting Calamagrostis SCX acutiflora Karl Förster when you want late summer plumes and discovering it finished in June. Karl Förster is outstanding. The Perennial Plant Association named it Perennial Plant of the Year in 2001, documented by Walters Gardens and NC State Extension as a cool season grass with early summer bloom. Calamagrostis brachytricha is its warm season counterpart with late summer to fall timing. The two are routinely shelved together without explanation of their opposite seasonal schedules. Walters Gardens documents brachytricha as blooming late summer through early fall, the precise opposite of Karl Förster. It forms an upright arching clump with wide glossy leaves and produces fluffy bottlebrush plumes that open purplish red and age to greenish tan, holding ornamental interest through winter when the dried plumes catch frost. Hardy zones 4 through 8. It grows equally in full sun or partial shade and tolerates moist soils. A rare documented combination for any large ornamental grass. The species distinction that separates June blooms from September blooms is never communicated because both carry the Calamagrostis name and sit in the same nursery section. Bottom line, Calamagrostis brachytricha gives you late summer plumes, shade tolerance, and fall structural presence that Carl Förster cannot deliver, because these two grasses bloom in completely different seasons. The final plant holds the most impressive single number I found across all the trial data I reviewed. Plant number 12, Anemone hupahensis, Prince Heinrich. The deep rose-pink semi-double anemone documented in Chicago Botanic Garden. Trial data at 64.8 days of continuous bloom, the longest period of any fall anemone tested across the entire evaluation. The mistake is buying fall anemones without the cultivar name and assuming comparable performance across the category. Chicago Botanic Garden compared over 20 named cultivars across multiple seasons. Honorine Jobert bloomed for 45.8 documented days. September Charm bloomed for 48.2 days. Prince Heinrich, a semi-double deep rose pink form, led the entire trial at 64.8 days, nearly 2 full months of continuous documented bloom. That number will never appear on a garden center tag. It represents the difference between 6 weeks of fall color and 9 from the same type of plant in identical conditions. NC State Extension documents fall anemones in zones 4 through 7 in moist, organically rich soil and part shade, the same conditions as Honorine Jobert. The difference between the two cultivars is documented purely in bloom duration. Plant Honorine Jobert for white flowers on 5-foot stems. Plant Prince Heinrich for deep rose pink semi-double flowers and a 3-week longer season. Fine gardening documents fall anemones as frost-resistant during bloom. Flowers continue opening after light frosts that terminate most other late-season perennials. Bottom line, Prince Heinrich at 64.8 documented days is the longest blooming fall anemone in published horticultural trial data. And that cultivar name is the only difference between 9 weeks of fall color and 6. Here is the principle this list comes down to. The late summer planting window is the most productive and most ignored window in the gardening calendar. Extension research shows that perennials planted in late summer devote the entire establishment period to root growth, arriving next spring stronger and more floriferous than the same plants installed in April. You are not planting late. You are planting at exactly the right moment. The names that matter from this list: Hylotelephium Herbstfreude in your driest soil for 5 months of changing color. Symphyotrichum Purple Dome for 2 feet of solid purple in early fall. Helenium Sahin's Early Flowerer for 7 documented weeks of fire. Solidago rugosa Fireworks, rated number 1 in 5-year trial data. And Anemone Prince Heinrich at 64.8 documented days, the longest bloom period of any tested fall anemone, a number you will never see on a tag. Order these by the specific cultivar names, not the generic species from the nearest unlabeled flat. The variety name is the entire difference between a plant that performs and one that disappoints for 3 seasons before you give up on the category. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with every gardener who watches their garden go blank every August. The next video on screen builds on what you just learned. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from and which of these 12 you are planting first. Go plant something that does not need you.